such a simple black and white narrative that I see so many other people do, as if the showdown down in central Mexico was what decided the fate of the rest of the Americas, when it certainly did not. Right after that, the Spanish were embroiled in a war with the Chichimecas for 50 to 60 years, and they couldn't defeat them militarily despite having, horses, gunpowder, and armor. They still could not contend with those warriors because they were that skilled and because they had better tactics. And so at the time, they had to sue for peace after 50 years of fighting. These supposedly superior Spaniards that were just so gallant and brave and amazing, right? They couldn't hack it. This is from the viceroy at the time, Martin Enriquez, saying that the Chichimecas still remained to be conquered and that all the Spaniards of New Spain would not suffice for the task, right? And this was in a letter to his successor in 1580. And you could read more about that in Soldiers, Indians, and Silver by Philip Wayne Powell. Now, I've run into Hispanistas plenty of times before, so I know the type of rebuttals that you guys say, which is simply, you hate your Spanish roots, you hate your European roots, blah, 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 blah. And that is not certainly the case, so please spare me that bullshit. Because I have traced my European roots extensively. I've applied for Portuguese citizenship. I speak Spanish to a nearly C2 level. I improved it. I speak Portuguese fluently. So I'm much more connected to any Iberian roots than you would be, right, on that basis. So, don't try to punch up when you can't. But let's not be disingenuous and ignorant, and let's not pretend that Iberians were these gallant saviors that were morally justified in coming here and doing the things that they did. You ask, where would the indigenous people be without the Europeans coming here and having invaded and colonized everything? They would just still be very primitive. And to that I say, well, where would the rest of the world be if it wasn't for trade? If it wasn't for adopting different technologies, because that's exactly what the Europeans did to the Chinese and different types of nations in the past. And that's how technology is spread across the entire world. So what would have happened essentially without invasion or colonization is that the indigenous people would have developed even more by themselves. They would have developed different type of tech because they already had different tech that the Europeans didn't have at the time, different methods, and they would have acquired everything else through trade, through diplomacy. So it wasn't necessary to have a bunch of violent colonization, rapings and killings and genocide for them to develop. That would have naturally happened. And additionally, I find it funny that a lot of the times when Hispanistas go into this whole thing and they talk about this matter, they typically are Christian themselves. They really talk about how important that is to them. And yet nothing in the Bible would support what the Spanish did when they came here and colonized everything and how violent they were. And I guarantee you, if there is any validity to, let's say, the Christian religion, I'm not really religious myself, but let's say it's true, right? If it's true, then those people that did those actions wouldn't be in heaven.